What happens at laser tag never stays at laser tag.
Laser Unfocused Tag Talk.
Laser Unfocused Tag Talk.
I feel like you could be like in Ghostbusters or something.
Oh my God, you have got some stories.
Let's talk about laser tag.
Who knew you were a laser tag legend?
Time to get laser unfocused. Tag Talk with Tivia.
Welcome to Laser Unfocused Tag Talk. Hi, I'm Tivia. Photon Forever isn't just a website, it's a state of mind as I get to chat with two Photon warriors about the game that continues to resonate after more than 40 years. So today I am being joined by Brian Martin and Will Loconto, aka Recon and Shadow, who were both Photon players at the very first laser tag center ever, the one opened in Dallas, Texas. So I have to say, welcome, Photon warriors.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So great to have you both here chatting with me. Now, I met both of you for the first time at a recent reunion gathering of Dallas Photon players. And what struck me the most, coming into this, I wasn't sure if I was just going to be a fly on the wall. I think I became part of the family by the end. But what was most obvious to me is that this is a community that is just full of love, and Photon transcends time, because by watching you all, it just looked like everyone was picking up right where they left off with connections that are going back 40 years. The very first Photon Center opened in March in 1984. And so you were really amongst the very first players to ever set the stage for what laser tag would become. So I'd like to take you back 40 years and talk a little bit about how you all got into this. I mean, please tell me how you each first found Photon.
Well, I'm gonna step in because I'm pretty sure I started playing before Will, not long before, but before Will. And it goes back to I had a part-time job in '84 at a video arcade, so arcade games, and one of the owners was this dopey, mouthy guy that was always telling stories that were obviously not true. And one of them was that he and his business partner were using CIA robotic and laser technology to create this laser game where they would, people would go through a darkened room and there would be robots with laser guns and you would shoot at them back and forth. And I remember just going, okay, yeah, and log that in the BS file. And I wound up leaving that job. Actually, I was probably late '83 instead of '84. And at my regular full-time job, I was taking a lunch break, and I was reading through the Dallas Morning News in the middle of the week, and there's this story about this thing called Photon, and there's a big dark room with lasers, and I was like, oh my gosh, the guy actually did it. Turns out it wasn't the same thing at all. The guy was full of malarkey, but I didn't know at the time. And so it opened on a Friday, and the following Saturday morning, I was there to play.
Oh my gosh. So you were like there from day one, essentially?
Well, day two. Yeah.
Day two.
I was thinking, I think if I remember, I was thinking, the place will be just jam-packed on opening night. And I didn't realize it was going to become a big part of my life or whatnot. If I'd known that, I would have been there on opening night just so I could say I was. But no, I showed up mid-morning on Saturday the next day with a friend of mine.
That is awesome. Okay, so you really are one of the oldest Photon warriors. I'm sorry, I just called you old, but you're vintage when it comes to
yeah.
Very cool. And Will, how did you find Photon?
I was a junior in high school, and I was reading a Newsweek magazine, and I'm reading through, and they had a little feature on this Photon thing, and I was reading through it, and by the end of the article, I was like, holy crap, it's in Dallas. And so I called my girlfriend, and we were like, okay, let's go. And we went up there, and I don't know if you were working there by then. It may have been, I would say, somewhere like May or June of '84, probably the beginning of the summer is when, but I know you started working there relatively quickly, right? I mean,
Yeah, I did.
I think, yeah. So we went for we went there for the summer, at the beginning of the summer. It was so much fun, and it turned into a thing where I was playing enough to where I ended up having to work there because it got too expensive.
A running theme that I heard over and over in Dallas is that we all took jobs at Photon to support our habit of playing
That was
that
exactly
game.
it. Yeah, because
Oh.
I was a little older than everybody else. I was 21 in March. I turned 21 in March of '84. And so I had a regular full-time job, but I like everybody else, I got a job there just so I could, play for free essentially.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So clearly, over the course of all this, a lot of cool things happened, a lot of memories being made. I know that there's always stories, so I'm just going to ask you to kick things off with what are some awesome stories that you remember from those early days?
I'll jump in just for a second because one of the things that I think one of the reasons people are still connected through it now, is it was something that turned into, it was almost like an island of misfit toys where a bunch of people that were very different, from very different backgrounds, from very different jobs, very different socioeconomic groups, all like this thing, and all were freaking out about this thing. I mean, I got to go with the group to be on 2020, that they did a feature on Photon, and I got to go up with them. And but I was, as a senior in high school, and after I graduated high school, I was literally befriending 40-year-old men and women, and it basically was something that crossed all demographics, the people that love this. So it was a really interesting group of people, and interesting, uh it's kind of hard to explain.
Yeah,
What I what I've always perceived, because as a laser tag player now, I see it in my own centers. It's like finding your tribe, is how I feel about it. Is that kind of a way to describe it?
that's
Yeah.
exactly how I described it to my wife just the other day. Um, because she and I met in a totally different organization, a totally different thing that was also a finding one's tribe type thing, so she could relate with that. And Willie, I didn't know that you went up there to New Jersey for the 2020 thing. And it's funny because I literally just came across it on YouTube like 2 or 3 days ago without looking for it. It just popped up and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so yeah, the weird story about that was that when they chose all of the people to go, I don't know if you remember what I looked like in 1984, 85.
Yeah.
And I was not the poster boy for Photon. So, yeah, I had the weird hair and the earrings, and it was interesting because they didn't pick me. They picked Steve and Spacely and Janimal and Buck,
And Buck.
and and it was and and when I look back at the time, I remember I was upset they didn't pick me, and other people actually were upset too.
Yeah.
There were people donated money to help me fly up there to be part of it, even though they didn't interview me on 2020. You can see me sitting with the group and talking with them. I got to go up there and be a part of it, but I was not an official Photon representative. So very
And,
odd.
and what's really ironic about that is if you could pick two or three or four people who were um, the most popular and well liked, and if you said Photon in '84, '85, you would have been one of the first people. You, Daredevil. I'm just going to use people's Photon names to be safe. You, Daredevil. Um, I don't know, maybe Digital Chicken, Hun. Uh, and you said you weren't the poster boy, yada yada yada. So Tivia, just so you know, when people look back at videos or movies or whatever that were made in the 1980s, my son, who's 26, has asked before, like, did people really dress like that? And I say, not most of us, because most of us didn't have the money or the look to be able to pull it off. Sorry, when we get into Photon, I go back to calling him Willie because that's what everybody knew him as in the 80s. Will, his dad made a nice income and he had the height and the slenderness and he was a good looking kid and he had all the 80s stuff, man. He was like the 80s poster child. So it's really ironic that they didn't pick you for that, man, because, Will would show up looking like he just stepped out of a Duran Duran video, while the rest of us were wearing jeans and t-shirts.
Yeah, that's funny. Yep, that's pretty true. Yeah.
Oh my
And
God.
it's also ironic because I'm in the video as one of the people just yelling I don't even know what we were
Oh, I
yelling.
remember that. And that was when you were in your team, Party Guys.
Is that what? Yeah, maybe. I don't
Yes,
remember what
yes.
we were yelling. And Jet was like right next to me, just like staring intently at me, screaming whatever it was I was screaming.
Yeah.
And I just remember the director, and I don't think John Stossel, the interviewer guy, he didn't come down to Dallas, I don't think.
No,
But
I don't think it did. Yeah.
they sent a film crew down, and I just remember the director of the film crew going, "Just be really enthusiastic and really over the top." And I showed it to my wife like 2 days ago, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, that's you!" I was like, "Yeah," and I'm just like maniacally screaming at the camera.
Oh my goodness. Now I have seen this interview umpteen times, and now I have to go back and see if I can pick you both out, which I'm not sure that I could because I brought a photo album of some pictures from the vintage Photon Dallas days, and I could not believe when people were pointing out who's who. Recon, you especially.
Yeah,
I saw a photo of you and I was like, oh my gosh, after having talked with you for half an hour there and then seeing a photo, I hope I can pick you all out. But yeah, that's really cool though that you were both there and now I'm gonna have to keep eyes open a little bit better.
yeah. I don't look much the same. I mean, I don't have much hair now, and most of the hair I have is on my face. I didn't have a beard then, and if I did have it, it certainly wasn't white. Um, no, I didn't grow the beard until '89. So,
Well, you got through the bulk of the experience as Recon and Shadow, and um, tell me about what makes this such a significant experience in your life.
You want to go ahead?
yeah, it's hard to define because um, there's there's a certain je ne sais quoi, a certain I don't know what, because Photon was more than just laser tag because it was more immersive and it was more competitive and you were playing the same people a lot of times over and over and over again. And iron sharpens iron. I would get better by playing against really good players like Will and like Steve and others, Daredevil. Um, so there was that aspect to it, but there was also what Will said earlier about that, Island of Misfit Toys and finding your tribe, because it became. We all started playing Photon because we were interested. We came back because it was fun, but we kept coming back, and that became our place because we just kind of found our people.
Yeah,
So I
and it
think
crossed
that's what it
over
was.
and it crossed over to other things too. We played paintball when paintball was brand new.
Yeah, we did. We did. And I had a
Right?
lot of fun doing it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, and things that were brand new at that time. I mean, you say that this was different from laser tag. When Photon opened, there wasn't any other laser tag. You truly were the pioneers of building what is a laser tag player community. We all kind of find our tribes now in different places, but everything was new back then. And things that are staples of laser tag today all got started where you guys were playing. So I'd love to talk about some of how Photon has had such a lasting impact on the entirety of the laser tag industry, because things like lighting, fog, atmosphere, they were all laying the groundwork for what makes for an immersive laser tag experience. And though I know George Carter wanted to make it immersive from the beginning, there was no definition of what is immersive, and it just kind of organically seems to have evolved. So, can you talk to me a little bit about those staple elements and things that we're seeing today in different ways? Like the lighting, and those shark fin lights, and those molecular big bulb lights, they evoke a feeling that
They do.
you don't get just anywhere. I mean, that is a very specific kind of
Yeah.
vibe.
Well,
Yeah.
I think one of the things that made it immersive was Photon. Laser tag places today are like added on to, there might be other things like bowling or go-karts or whatever. Photon, it was it. That was nothing else. And so, and at least in the early days, Will, you remember all the employees had to wear those black vests that were very kind of triangular and had the
Yeah, it made it, well, it looked like a bad science fiction movie. I mean,
exactly. That's what it
really did.
was.
And I think that was the intention of the environment, when they first started with and if you remember back then, laser shows were a big deal. Planetariums, you'd go to the laser show at the planetarium on Friday night, or like Richland College or something.
Mhm.
And I'm remembering that. And you remember when they were trying to actually put lasers on the guns,
Yep.
and we had prototypes where they were experimenting with that. And it was the vibe of, it's dark. And I mean, the part that's crazy is that back then we could run full speed wearing this equipment. And I
And
don't know if there's a laser tag place that lets you do that now. And but if you remember, we would run full speed carrying like 30 pounds of gear on us, because those photo battery belts were
we're so heavy.
yeah, they were crazy. And I do think, I think it's like you're living in a movie. That's really what it was. And that was George Carter's inspiration for it, was living in the Star Wars battle at the beginning of Star Wars, when they're boarding the rebel ship.
Mhm.
Yeah, and when you first walked into the location there in Dallas, so you walk in, and to your right, across from you, to your right, was this huge mural that was done, and it was amazing, and it was all photon and sci-fi stuff and players and laser battles, and it was incredibly well done. In fact, I remember being up there. Uh, we weren't supposed to be there. A couple of us were there hanging out with the artist a couple of nights while he was working on it. But you go in there, and everybody's wearing their photon vests, and everybody's wearing black jeans or parachute pants, the 80s. And it had a feeling like you walked into kind of like a starport or something.
Yep.
And then if you walked up onto the observation deck to watch the games, it really felt like that, because
The very first time you walked up there onto the ob deck, that it's crazy, because you'd never been in a place like that.
no, it was those huge towers and everything. And when the first time you walked out, I distinctly remember I was uh, on the green team the first time, and that's probably why I always preferred the green team. Think about it. Got all suited up and the stuff, and it was those first generation guns. They were the brass cylindrical guns,
Yeah,
not
I
the
actually I
little.
have one of those.
Oh, do you?
Yes.
Oh, dude. I remember walking out onto the playing field and just looking up at everything and going, "Oh my God." Felt like I just stepped into a different world. And then, you hear the welcome photon warriors and there and everything, and the music, and it was just overwhelming. It was just so cool. I felt like I had just been teleported.
Yeah, and it connected on a visceral level too. You know, that like you felt like this is I want to do more of this.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, I was just like, injected straight into my veins. I need more.
I will say one of the stories that's coming back to me, one of the things that do you remember doing lights out games?
Yes.
So one of the cool things that we did as employees was after hours, there was an artifact of the system, the way the system was set up, that if they turned off some of the system, you would only have three shots. You could hit somebody three times. So we would play completely lights out where the field would be completely dark. The only thing that lit up were the helmets, the lights on the helmet and the light at the front of the gun. And so we would play, and actually doing that, we would play things like Tubular Bells, David Oldfield, and you remember that, and or Jean-Michel Jarre, but we would play different music, and
And Blocker.
yes, and it would be pitch dark, one on one. You only get three shots, so you know if you hit me three times, I hit you three times, we tie 0-0. And so the goal was to win with each person had three shots, and the game ran for the 6-minute game, and see who came out on top with only three shots.
Mhm.
And some of the people may or may not have been completely sober during some of those games.
Yeah, probably not OSHA compatible now, right? As a job related.
Well, I imagine many things have changed over time as far as compatibility, but one thing that plays back to this whole atmosphere, but also set the stage for something I think was very wise from the beginning. Photon established something very important early on, which was trying to make sure that the terminology addressed that this was fantasy. So you weren't really using the term guns, quote unquote,
No.
and a tag is not a kill, quote unquote. We use phasers to zap an opponent out of commission for a few seconds. It's not violent in any way, and I know that was a big point in the John Stossel interview
Yeah.
to be clear on that. But in the early days, did you recognize how important those terminology distinctions were, or why they might be down the road?
I
No,
mean,
it was 1984, 85, 86, and at that time nobody cared about stuff like that.
Okay.
yeah,
Um,
and I understood.
for the marketing of it, yes, I could see that. But as players, we didn't care, and we played back then. The paintball game was called Survival. The
Mhm.
very beginning of
Yeah,
paintball.
you're right. It was.
It was called Texas Survival Game is the place where we went, and the game was called Survival. And if you believe this, we played with they were tree marker guns that would use the paint pellets, and they would use it to mark trees to cut
Mhm.
down. And the only safety thing we had were lab glasses.
Yeah, that's it.
So we
I've
played.
always wondered why they call it a paintball marker. That makes perfect
That's
sense.
it. That's exactly, yes. That's where it came from. And we had a funny story about that too.
Okay.
Recon, the thing about we went to buy our markers from a guy from the field, and we made the exchange, quote unquote, at a gas station. As we're driving away from the gas station, we got pulled over by US Marshals that thought we bought illegal
Oh,
guns. They just happened to see it at the gas
I
station
was
and pull
there.
these things out. And I'm trying to remember who it was. I think it was Bathan and Digital Chicken and Davu. And
Yeah, the
yeah,
usual suspects.
yes, and yeah, but it's fun that just another funny story that was Photon, came out of our Photon connections, and but yeah,
and the kind
Yeah,
of thing that in time, there were precautions put on, plastic and toy items to make sure it was a little clearer that this is a toy.
oh, good, that segues us right into the perfect story.
I
Oh
went to
dear.
the same
Okay.
place,
Go
Brent.
ahead,
I went to
Brian.
the same place. So another one of the activities that we did as a group at Photon was we a couple of times had rounds of the assassination game. Bottom line, we had one person who was kind of like the organizer and the overall referee. people would sign up. Everybody would get like a card. Well, your name would be written on a card, I guess. No, everybody got cards, and then those cards were basically shuffled, and everybody was an assassin, quote unquote, and everybody had an assassin trying to kill them. Also,
A
kill them.
particular person, a
Yes.
particular
So,
player was assigned to find a
Yeah,
particular
so like
player. Okay.
I could have been assigned to you, or you would have been assigned to Brian, and
Gotcha.
and literally, it's a 24-hour a day game.
yeah, and you don't know who is assigned to you. So I knew, for example, I had someone trying to quote unquote kill me, but I didn't know who they were. And so you could put Vaseline somewhere that's supposed to be poison. If they touch it, they die. Or you could shoot them with a dart or a rubber bullet, or put a tripwire somewhere, all these different things. And you're on your honor to admit if or when you got killed, if there was nobody around to see it. So Bathan had this one target, and Bathan goes, I know I've gotten him 2 or 3 times, and he's not admitting to it. And he said, I've laid some traps at his house, and I want some third-party people there who are, involved in the game, but that aren't targeting either Bathan or his target, to verify that this person sets off a trap. So Will, another player who will remain nameless, but you met a couple of weeks ago, Tivia. I'll tell you that much.
Okay.
And we're not using his name out of respect, because he has stated before that he didn't want his name associated with this, because he does public service and stuff in his town. So this other person and Will and I staked ourselves out in an alley where we could look between 2 houses at the house of Bathan's target. Bathan was also nearby, hiding in some bushes, also looking at this house. So that kind of sets everything up. Will, I'll let you run with it.
You got to remember too, I believe you had one of the little guns that shoots the little rubber yellow bullets.
Yep, I did.
I remember that. And at some point we were trying to get him to come out, the target to come out of his house. And it ended up that he wasn't coming out. So we basically were giving up on it.
That's right.
And if I remember right, I think we were supposed to, we told one of the other guys, we told them that we would walk down the street conspicuously that we were leaving. And right. And then as we were conspicuously leaving, 2 police cars drive up.
Oh,
wait. No, it was one to start with.
Oh, it was one to start with. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
One to start with. And he comes up rapidly, and like his front right tire comes up on the curb, and he gets out and he comes around, and we're 3 of us are standing there like, and Willie has got long 80s hair. The other guy just looks like your average kind of, photon nerd, and I just kind of look like your average photon nerd, but we're wearing black t-shirts and have earrings and stuff. And I had this little gun that obviously was not a real gun. And this guy comes out around, and he's like, hey, and we're stopped. We're like, what is going on? He says, were you boys in that alley? And this is where I made my first mistake. I'm a word person, and I believe in the precision of words. So instead of just saying yes, I said, which alley, sir? Because we were in this alley over, and I start turning around and point, and dude gets up in my face, and he said, in the alley, boy, do you understand? Blah, blah. I'm the one asking the questions here. Do you understand? And I was like, yes, sir, I understand. And so again, Will, I'll hand it back off.
Well, so, I mean, long story short, the guy starts telling us, that I don't remember the order of how things happened, but it ended up that he put you and I in the back seat of his car.
Well, he called for backup.
Yeah, he called for backup, and a second car came, and they put you and I in the back seat of the car, and then they went and got the target out of his house. They rang his doorbell and had him come out and talk to us. And they were asking questions about what we're doing, and we told them what we were doing. We're playing a game. We're not doing anything other. I mean, we're just playing a game. And now that I look back on it, we were probably a lot more cocky than we should be, because we were sure we weren't doing anything wrong.
Yeah. At the same time, we were very carefully yes, sir, and no, sir, and whatnot.
Yeah, I didn't mouth off until he shut the door and couldn't hear me, I guess, right? That's
Well, and the funny thing is, so one of the cops stays with us to make sure we don't run off. The other cop goes over to the target's house.
yeah,
None of it was real.
and that's again why we were very certain that we weren't doing anything wrong either.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when when I look back on it, my attitude for the whole thing was probably, I mean, we were respectful, but we also were, this is really stupid because we're not doing anything wrong.
Well, we were respectful right up until the point, and keep in mind, by the time at one point, and they dragged the target over to us, and he corroborates everything that we told them. And then they go and they stand behind one of them's car, and they're talking and they're talking. And I was like, what is going on here? So finally, they come back over and I said, sir, did we do something wrong? Are we in trouble? And the guy goes, and this is where I stopped being respectful. The guy said, this is mistake number 2 for Brian. He says, let me tell you something, boy. I've been on the force 13 years, and my partner here has been on the force for 10 years. And between our combined 24 years of experience, we're going to find something to charge you with. And I said, if that's the case, then I think I should inform you that 10 and 13 is 23, not 24. And he goes, oh, real smart guy, huh? And I said, well, I'm smart enough to add 10 and 13. And it all went down.
Well, no, and that's when they put us in the back seat of the car. Yeah. So guess what? We get taken to jail.
Yeah. Oh, including the guy they pulled out of his house. They
The
didn't
guy
say
is minding his own business.
Yes. So they arrested 4 of us.
Yeah.
While Bathan sat in the bushes and watched us get arrested.
Now, this is a wonderful example of 2 things. One, things that could only happen in the 80s before safeguards were put in place.
And cell phones too.
None of this would fly today,
Oh.
but it was a different time. And then the second thing, though, is when you asked me if I was familiar with this game, I thought for sure we were going down the path of a Photon game, because I thought you were going to give me a variation on VIP, a tactical game that we play. So I had no idea where this story was going, and boy, did we run this off the rails.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, we could go on for a long, long time. But one of the funny details and ironic details is, like Will said, Bathan was hiding out in the bushes of somebody's yard. And, Bathan, long black hair, the drooping black mustache. He's wearing black fatigues, like night fatigues and combat boots, and has a squirt gun that looks exactly like an M16. If you saw it from 10 feet away, you think, why is that guy carrying an M16?
And in my bushes on my porch. Yeah. Yeah.
This is such a very specific moment in time for youth in the 80s.
Yeah.
And when you first started saying this and gave the name of the game, I was like, we were just talking about how we use the term phasers.
Wasn't there a movie?
This does not sound like a Carter authorized game.
So there's a movie.
So
there's
nothing to do with Photon. Past the point, it was a few of you guys playing shenanigans.
There's an 80s movie about it, and I forget what it was called. I think it's called Gotcha. But long story short, all the charges got dropped when we went to trial, and so nothing ever happened. But
yeah. And there were a lot of smart alecky remarks and shenanigans that took place in the jail. Not prison, it was just the jail, because they booked us and took our picture, and we couldn't take it seriously. It was all so silly. And yeah, they brought us before a judge, like, I don't know, a month later or something like that, and she like took one look at the files, called Will up. I don't know why
Yeah,
you
I don't know. Yeah, no.
and talked to you for a little bit, and then sent you back down, and then she like shook the file in the like city attorney's face, dropped it on her desk, and walked out. And it was like, okay, well, we're done here. But to me, the coolest thing about it, it was kind of cool and kind of touching, was it took us a few hours to get into the jail and fingerprinted, and it did the whole thing. And one by one, we got out. And of course, where did we go? We went straight back to Photon. And when we got, I don't know about you, Will, but when I showed up, there's this huge crowd.
Oh, it was like a hero's welcome. Yes, right. Yeah,
And I walked in and people
great.
were like, yeah, Recon's out. And they were already making little badges that said free the Photon 4.
Well, I don't know any other way to segue this back to Photon other than you had your photo taken in jail. You had your Photon taken for a passport. That's the only segue I can come up with here.
Yes.
And we were for months afterwards, we were the Photon 4.
Yes.
You were the Photon 4. I'm sure they were delighted. Okay, here's a segue. Marketing. I'm sure that was nowhere official, but there were, for some of you, marketing opportunities, and I suppose for others, very different opportunities. But Photon was in the press quite a bit, and so Will, you mentioned seeing this in Newsweek, but you were in the press a lot, and there were appearances in well over 100 publications like Time, Newsweek, Sports Illustrated.
Yeah, I was in, actually, now that you say that, I was in 17 magazine. There was a blurb about me in 17.
Are you being serious?
Yes, 100%. Yeah, it was just a little tiny thing about Photon, and it had me in there.
I don't think I have that issue in my collection. I got to find what month that was.
Yeah, Brian, you were on. I remember you being interviewed because you said something about Randy White, the football player.
Wow. Okay. Yeah, I don't remember that.
I forget what it was. It was in a magazine, and I forget which magazine it was. But yeah, but basically, like all of the the group of good players did get some opportunities to talk with the press a lot, and of course we were wanting to evangelize the whole Photon thing, because I really wish it would have been more successful at the time than it was. I think that they really, as from the corporate side, now knowing now that I'm not a 19-year-old kid, looking back on it, I feel like they rather than leaning into the people that were obsessed with it, part of the time they kind of pushed us away and wanted it to be more like a Disney World type one-time experience for people, rather than the leagues and the multiple playing time. And because the problem with it is that I guess like we said before, most of the people that got really good at it ended up working there because it cost too much money. When at $3 a game, it ended up as a 19-year-old kid, whatever, it made way more sense to work there.
And I got the feeling sometimes, and in my particular case, it could have just been I was so obnoxious, that there were times where they felt like the regulars, I kind of felt like at times they thought of us, they meaning like probably Dan and Bob, the manager, felt like we were an inconvenience or an annoyance or something.
Right. Yep.
Well, and I think that is a challenge that laser tag operators today still deal with. Members are a very tricky balance, because once you get to the point of being that good, you either help newer, younger players along and you help to grow the scene, or you become the reason somebody might not enjoy coming back, and you have to find that fine balance. So
we did.
How do you feel about that?
Yeah, there was a lot of that. And one of the things you would make sure you know, as employees when we were there, being some of the best players at the game, you know, you didn't pick on, you know, the people you picked on were the drunk jerks that came in and were mouthing off. And then that's when you suit up the team of all the guys that are going to just destroy them. But when it's like a bunch of kids that want to play, you know, you help them out and you try to, you know, you try to make it a good experience for them. So we actively did that.
Yeah, I got one of my highest scores ever when I was sitting in the office just shooting the breeze with Bathan, and somebody who was, you know, I was off, I wasn't working, and I forget who it was, somebody came back to the office and said, "Hey man, we got these obnoxious frat boys who are just roasting these little kids. Can we send a couple of a player or two out there to, you know, even it up?" And it was like they were little kids, and the mom was not happy because they went out in their first game, and these SMU frat boys just lit them up, and you know they were like high-fiving each other like they had accomplished something. So I was not, I wasn't doing anything, and so Bathan's like, "Hey, Recon, you want?" I was like, "Yeah, I'll go do it." And I don't remember what the inspiration was, but we taped. McDonald's was putting these Happy Meals in plastic boats, so we
Okay.
taped this plastic boat to my helmet, and I'm back there then like I'm Captain Newbie. I'm like doing everything you're not supposed to do. I'm pointing the thing in my face and pointing it, and they're like, "No, don't do that, and don't do this." And all the employees are playing along. This guy's a big dopey moron. And they told the guys, "Oh, he's wearing we really dumb new people will put this doofy thing on their helmet, and if you shoot that, you get extra points." And they're like, "Oh, okay." And I told I got the little kids out there. I was like, "Y'all, I know what I'm doing. I play here a lot. La 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 la. This is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna keep them occupied, and y'all just walk around behind them and shoot them." And just lit them up. And the kids came out happy. And you know, I think that was a free game because they got roasted so bad the first time. So they all came out happy and high score. And then the frat boys came out. They were mad, but you know, whatever.
Yeah, they just made me remember. I remember a tournament where we played, and you know how I recon remember how they would tell you, you know, wear all black and hide, and you know, and so the people are like just barely poking out. And I remember in one of the tournaments, I wore all white just on purpose, and because once you got past a certain point of knowing how to play the game, it wasn't you know what you were wearing didn't matter.
No, it didn't. It
You know,
didn't.
yeah. So
It was just knowing where to be and how to get there and what to do when you got hit. And my favorite thing to do was to run over to the far side and then run down the ramp. You got people where I would stand in the base and guard it, and they would stand underneath
and
where you
in it, yes.
and I would run down, and then about halfway down that ramp, slide and come in. They could hear me coming, but then I'd slide underneath their field of vision and hit them, so they're disrupted, hit the base, and then hit them, and then, you know, and do stuff like that.
Yeah, the league stuff was some of the most fun that I ever had. I mean, I remember because I remember when we first joined that first league where Bathan, it was Wolfpack and the Centurions. Wade and Steve's team was the Centurions, and we were the Brotherhood because we had two sets of brothers on our team. And I remember we came in third. We came in third place because the night of the championship, I went and visited a college.
You went and visited what?
College. I had a
Oh,
college visit, so I was not there for the last games the tournament that for the championship day.
yeah. Willie was famous for inventing, I think they called it the Willie Lean.
Gosh, yeah, that's funny.
Okay.
Yeah, so where you tip, you turn your pod away from the person, hold your gun out, and lean back as far as you can so they can't hit your helmet.
Ah,
And it worked actually.
It, and he could still hit you.
Yes, yes, and it was yeah.
He
Randy,
was so
Randy,
mad when
Randy was good at that too.
yeah, he
now
was.
you will get called out in tournaments for certain moves of that nature. If you're
Now
blocking
you
sensors or
can't.
whatnot these days. Was that a thing that you got penalized for back in the day, or
Actually,
nobody knew what
no.
it was, so you just
No, it was new. Yeah, it was new.
Yeah.
So no. And then probably by the time I would think, I don't remember for sure, Recon, but once like Starbase happened, and I think they started outlawing it in different cities.
Really? That's
Yes.
stupid.
Yeah.
That's
So in a
dumb.
way, you guys really did have an impact on the industry that followed because you came up with the thing that they had to basically make rules about for
Yeah,
tournaments.
trying to figure out how to bend all the rules and figure out, yes, yeah. So probably, and probably, people getting hurt is one of the reasons nobody runs anymore.
Well,
Yeah, I remember when the Punisher took a bad spill and busted his nose really badly, and yeah,
Yeah, really bad. And
I also remember, golly, forget who it was. It may not have been a regular player, but the Dallas, the Alpha Fields, um, the little bridge from that led onto the ob deck, you could run underneath that,
yes,
and people ran underneath it all the time. But one time I remember some dude went in and didn't duck enough, and he was running full tilt and just laid
and
himself.
that's one of those things in those tournaments that happened a few times where both teams had guys running full speed at the beginning under that bridge, and they collided for, two people full speed wearing all that gear. Yeah, so
mm,
yeah, people definitely got hurt. I will say
Yeah,
that.
it wasn't super often, but it did happen. And talking about like first time for things, I remember when the Houston location opened up, and they were open a couple 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, and a bunch
Yeah,
of
because
us.
that was one of the things when they opened all around Texas and Oklahoma and even Louisiana. I think a bunch of people from Dallas would always, get a road trip and go play and go light everybody up in the new places because you go there and there's nobody that's any good yet because it's brand new.
Yeah, the funny thing is, though, they thought they were good. This is Houston. Houston's the only one I ever went to because I got booted out of Photon before any of the other ones opened up. But a bunch of us went down to Houston, and they had two fields,
Yeah,
and they
that was
were,
actually, wasn't that the first beta field?
yeah,
Yeah, I remember having those blueprints. I got a copy of those blueprints somewhere.
yeah, and they arranged a game by they took the 10 of us, it was 10 on 10. They let the 10 of us go put on a bunch of equipment. And then instead of standing in this giant line, because they wanted to do a Dallas versus Houston thing, they said, oh, these people were on the other field and the game had to reboot. So we're going to just move them up to the front of the line on the Alpha field. And everybody knew what was going on.
Yeah.
But they knew it was the Dallas versus Houston game for the first time. And I remember we were walking through into the staging area and got all logged in and everything, and walking past that line of people, and everybody's going Houston, Houston, and we walked out onto the field, and we had to, and the ob deck was packed. I mean, you couldn't get any more, and everybody's chanting Houston, Houston, and they just knew in their heart of hearts they were gonna light us up, and we killed them.
Even though the field was different too, like the alpha field in each place wasn't exactly the same. They all kind of had a quirky difference.
And they had that, it was painted a lighter shade of a very pale shade of gray, and we figured out that the IR reflected off of it, so you could aim to the left of somebody and still hit them, or they could be around the corner and you could still hit them. And I don't think they'd figured that out yet or something, because they were like, you're cheating, you're hitting me and you can't even see me. And I'm like,
bouncy shots, still a thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, and you know what? There's something else that still happens today is I have yet to walk into a laser tag where the current scene doesn't have a laser tag ego, no matter what the level of
Yeah.
skill.
No,
I've never met a laser tag player who didn't.
yes.
That's just par for the course.
Yes.
But it's really kind of cool to hear the stories from way back and be able to parallel it. It all comes full circle. It's how it is today in a lot of ways. And some of the things that you guys started out with do carry over, and one of them is code names. So code names were a thing with Photon from the very beginning. In many systems, we still use them. In fact, my code name is Tivia, and we'll get into, I'm sure, some of the reasons, but I want to hear about your code names, Recon and Shadow and some of the others. Tell me a little bit about where these names originated and what kind of significance they had before the days of online handles. When you just had to pick a
Oh
name,
yeah, yeah.
what went into that? What was your thought process? And did you think that you would still be called Recon years later?
No, not. So for me, like I said, showed up on a Saturday, the Saturday after opening day, and I was with a buddy of mine. Sorry, my dog is making a bunch of noise. Showed up with a buddy of mine who was in the Marine Corps, and so they were like, I don't remember exactly how the code name or the Photon name is, I think is what we called it, our Photon names. I don't remember how they brought it up or if we just saw that people were playing under different names. But my buddy wanted to be like Jarhead, I think is what it was, Marine. And I was like, you asked me what I want for my birthday or whatever, my mind goes blank. And I did the same thing. And I just went, and he goes, be Recon, use Recon. And I was like, okay. And I just thought Recon was just short for reconnaissance. I didn't know that it's an elite unit within the Marine Corps. It'd be like calling yourself a Navy SEAL or something. So had I known that, I probably wouldn't have used it. I certainly wouldn't have probably continued it. And now I certainly would, because it's kind of almost like a stolen valor kind of a thing. But I didn't know any better at the time. So I was like, oh, okay, Recon. And so when I went back the next day, I was like, Recon. So that's how I became Recon.
Yeah, and for me, I think I just thought the name Shadow was cool. And I remember my girlfriend used the name Sandinista.
Sandinista. And did it have significance to her? I mean,
No,
why
just
pick
like
that?
yeah. So back then there was a bunch of stuff going on in Nicaragua, and that was the Sandinistas were the rebels in
Yep.
Okay.
And there's a Clash album called that.
Ah.
And so yeah, so Shadow, and then my brother was Darkness. I don't know if you remember that.
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, it wasn't really that deep, but it's actually kind of cool, I guess, that the first names we used, we kept them instead of just changing.
Well, there were a few people that changed. I know Digital Chicken started out as Wet Chicken.
Yes.
And then he was just telling me a couple of weeks ago, it was Bathan said, looks more like a Digital Chicken. And so he was like, okay, Digital Chicken it is.
Okay. That's good.
And a couple of people have changed from time to time, but not much. I mean, it was Daredevil and Hun and Punisher and Shadow and Johan and Parsival.
Parsival.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about where that name came from? Why he picked that? That was Steve Holt who played as Parsival, right?
Yeah, he didn't pick it.
Okay.
He was playing under the name Photon with an F.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the management came and said, you can't do that. And he didn't know what else to play by. And there was this player there who played under the name Davout, who was a field marshal under Napoleon. And he was I've later since learned about him because my history nerdness. He was called the Iron Marshal and whatnot. And Davout was this really weird esoteric guy who read books. He's
ironic that the author is saying this, but go on.
Yeah, right.
At the time, and Devin was a really cool guy. I'm sure he still is, and he lives up in Chicago now. But Davout said, "You should be Parsival," and Steve was like, "Who's Parsival?" He's like, "He was a knight who found the Grail and yada 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 yada." You should be. And so Steve was like, "Okay, cool, I'll be Parsival." So.
Yeah, I just remember. So Steve was one of my roommates in college, and Rolliter too. But I remember with Steve, I remember on one of the press things they called him Boy Player Steve. I don't remember why. It was like Boy Player Steve does this, and they're like, okay, that's interesting enough.
And Steve was such a sweetheart of a guy. He was really good. He was quite good.
Yeah.
And in that 2020 thing, the John Stossel goes, Steve's the best photon player. Nobody beats his scores. And Steve was like, no, don't say that. Because, Steve didn't want people to think that he had told them to say that or
Yeah,
whatever.
right. Yes.
And of course, being friends of his, we had to give him a hard time about it for a couple of weeks. Oh, it's Steve. Nobody. And he would be like, super nicest guy.
Yes.
Well, Parsible was one of the code names that I have remembered for years, long before meeting any of you. And I've never actually met Steve, but I know his name and I recognize him from photos and videos and whatnot. But I came from a very different background to come to my love and appreciation of Photon, because while you all were, teenagers and young adults playing hard in this sport game in Dallas, I was a little 6-year-old kid watching the TV in New York.
Oh.
And that's where I first became familiar with the game and familiar with names like Bathan and Parsival, because I was watching that TV show
Yeah.
that I know everybody has mixed opinions about this show, so we're not going to dwell on the quality of what came out of it, but we're going to see how things connect, because Recon, I know you have mixed feelings about whether or not this is true, but you are widely considered to be the inspiration for the photon fighter Leon the Lizard in the TV show. Do you have an
Yeah.
opinion about that, or a feeling about being associated with Leon? Recon Leon, I can kind of see it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know for a fact that I was supposed to be the inspiration. Or I remember being told that a long while now ago, probably 10, 15 years or so ago. I if it's true, I like it. That's cool. Hey, little bit of interesting trivia to go along with the other various odd things that I've done in my life.
Well, and I love that there are several examples of that. So they used the name Parsival, clearly taken from Steve. They used inspiration that I am told Jet, and possibly a combination of Jet and Trina might be the inspiration for Tivia. When we were going through the Photon photo album and we saw a picture of Wade Duchesne, everybody just pointed and said, "That's Bodie Lee, that's
Yep.
Bodie Lee."
Yeah.
So, do you remember any of this?
Well, so yeah, what I'll say is, as the players, nobody was really involved in knowing what they were doing on that. I mean, other than Bathan was the most obvious one. They basically just transposed letters in his name, and but I'm pretty sure that those inspirations that's got to be pretty true. I think. Don't you think so, Brian?
I mean, it makes sense. I don't know. Was the Leon character, kind of loud and obnoxious?
Rough and to the point is where I would go, but
Okay, I can see that too.
to be
I would.
fair, they didn't do a tremendous amount of character development with these
Oh, right, yeah.
characters.
I'll say this. I had to learn how to be a more chill person and a more emotionally mature person, and not say the first thing that came into my head and whatnot. So yeah, if he was very direct and mouthy or whatever, then yeah, I can definitely see that having been me at the time. I I look back to the person I was then and I cringe sometimes. I just you know.
I think we all do, though. Like that's a normal thing of you wish you could tell yourself what you know now. You could tell your 22-year-old self what you know now, because your life would have been, not saying that it would be infinitely better, but you know what I mean, right? Like there's that feeling of like, there are things you would tell yourself if you could.
Yeah, but you didn't get kicked out of Photon for losing your temper, though. I did.
Yeah.
Oh.
Turned out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me. But yeah, at the time, I didn't see it that way.
Well, however, these inspirations came to the small screen, uh, I'll just say I'm an example of you reached somebody and it resonated enough that we're having this conversation 40 years later. And Photon has continued to have its place in the laser tag world and in pop culture in different styles. And one example is I play a current system that has a Photon emulation built into it. And so Laser Force has a game that is built around the premises of Photon, and every week I get brought up to explain the rules of Photon. I'm not an employee by any stretch, but I'm called to do the Photon briefing as Tivia, and sometimes I even get to explain where that name came from. And something that was, yes, Brian.
I was just going to say, I could totally see the Tivia character being based on Jet.
Yes, and Jet has acknowledged that she can see the traits that they pulled, and I think she's on board with that. Although that was new information to her when she heard an interview I actually did with Bathan. Bathan imparted that information that she heard for the first time.
Yeah, I think that Tivia would be a bit of an exaggeration, but I could see that being based on her.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. So those code names they resonate. And I was sharing with you that, in my home center for the longest time, nobody knew my real name is Lori. Everybody just assumed my name was Tivia because that's all anybody has ever called me. And the way my friends, people I'd hung out with for years, the way some of them found out that that was not my name was also an homage to Photon. We were playing on that system, and this particular system has screens on the front of the pack, and they have avatars, and you can pick an avatar, a little image that kind of speaks to you. And we were beta testing some new settings right before IAPA. My home site is a place where sometimes we get the perks of being able to test things out. And I hardly ever look closely at the packs or the avatars, but we were taking a break. We were all wearing the packs, and I look across the counter, and there is a staff member who's wearing a pack. And I practically lunge at the kid saying, "That's Tivia," because this was the homage put in as an Easter egg.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool.
That is cool.
And that was a very deliberate Easter egg choice that I was the first person to find, as confirmed by Force at that time. And so, so it still resonates. I mean, the things that you did, that one thing led to the next, and it's still permeating in lots of ways. And
I think George Carter did a good thing when he came up with this. I mean, maybe it didn't turn out exactly as what he thought it would, but it's changed a lot of people's lives, really. I mean, and like you're talking about too, and like I said, the connections that go back through all of it is it's really cool. Just really neat to be a part of it.
It really is, and I don't think any of us. Why would we have thought this? None of us, when we were experiencing it, were I don't think going, wow, we're in on the cutting edge of something that's really cool, and 40 years later we're still going to get together every once in a while and yada yada yada. It was just a cool, fun thing that we were doing, and with our tribe, as we said earlier. But looking back on it, I just think how fortunate I was that I got to be a part of that, and a part of something that still in some form or another exists, and that we were there on the ground floor and got to experience it.
Yeah, I feel like it was a thing where it was an escape for the misfits that turned into, it was an escape that turned into their real life in a weird.
Yeah. And it is a shame that Photon, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's business. I don't know if it was just the fad nature of that arcade games suffered the same fate, but I don't understand why it didn't last beyond the 80s.
The Photon entity itself, not the laser tag thing, but just the Photon entity itself.
Yeah. I know, like I said, arcade stand-up games didn't, outlive the 80s. And Photon seems to have kind of suffered the same fate. And I've never understood why it didn't work out better, or why they weren't able to grow the business in a manner which there was more things to do than just show up and play the game. But in a way, it's sad that it didn't, but in a way, it's also kind of a cool little time capsule.
Definitely a time capsule and a legacy. I mean, truly, you showing up on day 2. I mean, you are the pioneers of the laser tag player community. And did either of you ever play any other laser tag after Photon?
I've played some, but I don't remember the names of them. But it actually, one of the guys, Eric, that you met at the reunion, he lives in Detroit, and when my band was touring, I went up there and we went to something, and it was basically just like a thing in an office complex with temporary stand-up walls, and certainly wasn't Photon, and it wasn't what laser tag things are now, because that was like probably 1992 or 93, and it wasn't really that great at all. And but I know I've played with my kids at with their birthdays at
A main event or someplace
yeah,
like
main
that.
event, or like some blast center or something like that. And it's so much, it's still fun. Yeah, it's probably something that I should have kept doing because it was good exercise. That was the other part that, if you remember, I mean, wearing those packs and everything, everybody was in pretty good shape if they were, constantly playing.
Oh, that's for sure. That's one of the things that made people like Daredevil so good, because he was already in such good shape.
Yes, yes.
He could run forever.
Yep.
Well, definitely an awesome moment in time. I feel so blessed that I have been able to kind of be the fly on the wall for some of the stories. And my love and appreciation doesn't come from being an old school player, but definitely appreciating that were it not for the entirety of Photon, we might not have all the things that I get to enjoy as a laser tag player today. And so it's so very cool to get a chance to talk about all those old school memories from 4 decades back. Do either of you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share before we wrap things up?
I would like to just thank you for doing this. We're talking about the fact that we still getting together and still talking about it and whatnot. And you're bringing those memories of the original laser tag game to, a wider audience, and kind of giving I think the whole laser tag experience some context of its origins. And I'm a storyteller, right? I'm an author. So you're telling the stories and keeping it alive.
Well, thank you. It's an honor to be able to be in a place to share.
Yeah, and I would say too, it's really cool to be on with you to talk about this stuff, because it also brings up, memories that you remember, things that you didn't remember. And I just remember, like, it was such a important time. And, like I said, it was an escape for quote unquote misfit people that all bonded in a way over this thing. And this, I don't know. I think everybody, like you saw at the reunion, everybody there has a really special place in their heart for Photon and the connections that it enabled.
100%. Yep. I'm glad I'm glad I showed up there that day and kept coming back. I wouldn't have missed it for the world.
Nope. Me too.
Absolutely. That was an incredibly special experience, and so heartening to be welcomed into your little Photon family there. So I thank you both for taking some time to share some memories with me. Those are my guests, Brian Martin and Will Loconto, aka Recon and Shadow. Thank you, Photon Warriors, for whom the light still shines.
Thank you.
Thanks for checking out this episode of Laser Unfocused Tag Talk. Listen for more episodes on the first and third Friday of each month. Want to be a guest on an upcoming episode? Find out more and follow my blog and website at TiviaChickLovesLaserTag.com.